There we go. We destroy arguments and every opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. Perfect. This passage emphasizes that having strong beliefs or theology alone isn't enough to help Christians make thoughtful choices in everyday life. Instead, Christians also need a practical ethical framework, a set of moral guidelines to help them understand and apply their beliefs in the world. So, one, going beyond following trends. Without a clear ethical framework, people often just follow whatever society is doing without questioning it. This makes it hard to think independently or resist trends that might not align with one's values. Two, ethics as preparation. The author suggests that ethics is like a toolkit preparing people to reflect on their faith and values and make sense of their choices. This ethical guidance doesn't provide fixed answers to every situation, but it reminds Christians that their actions should reflect their beliefs. Ethics 3, commitment in action. Ethics reminds believers that faith isn't just about internal beliefs, it also requires serious commitment in real life. It helps people understand how far they might go in aligning their actions with their beliefs without dictating exact solutions. So in short, ethics is a necessary, down-to-earth guide that equips Christians to think and act in a way that matches their faith, rather than just following societal trends blindly. Karl Barth has a striking formula on this subject. The task of ethics cannot be to decide on the content of God's commandment, nor to judge man's action, but to describe the limits of God's commandment and man's corresponding action. And then there's a footnote for that, which says nothing. It's just a reference. And now I lost my spot. Awesome. I found it. We are indeed faced with one of the principal functions of that ethic, which cannot formulate the imperative addressed to a man, nor fixate the will of God for all eternity. But in displaying the continuity of the revelation, it can remind man where the commandment granted here and now enters in. And this presupposes that one places himself in the practical, historical situation of the faithful and of the church. Of course, the devotees of the Absolute will say that we must not allow for weaknesses and that we should not take pride, we should take pride in the power of the Holy Spirit. It is no lack of faith to remark that we are not in the kingdom of God, that the church also is a human society, and by that fact subject to the laws of sociology, that the Christian participates in history, and that it is within this history that he is not only to preach the gospel by his word, but also to witness his faith by his life. Thanks for the likes, everyone. So boring. Yeah, reading is so boring. But listening to people that don't read, that's interesting, right? People who have no idea what they're talking about, nothing interesting to say. Explain this to a layman. Would you learn that in a book? What you reading for? Why are you reading books when we can watch a TV? God is boring. What is evidence of God? God's necessary for evidence, so all evidence would be implicitly evidence for God. So Karl Barth's, I'll add the person requesting in a second. I just want to read this. Karl Barth's view on Christian ethics highlights that ethics isn't about setting the exact content of God's commandments or judging people's actions. Instead, ethics is about understanding the boundaries of God's guidance and how people should act in response to it. In simpler terms, one, ethics shows boundaries. Ethics isn't there to give fixed answers about what God wants at every moment or to define God's will permanently. Rather, ethics helps us understand where God's guidance applies in specific situations. 2. A real-world approach. Karl Barth believes that ethics has to consider real-life conditions, recognizing that humans are not perfect and live in a world that's not heaven. Christians, like everyone else, live in a society with its own challenges and influences. 3. Living faith in real life. Christians are called to share their faith not just by preaching, but also through their actions in ways that fit with the practical and historical reality they live in. So in Karl Barth's view, Christian ethics provides a framework to guide actions within real-world limits, acknowledging that faith must operate in a changing and perfect real world. A lot of times Christians become idealists, right? And they expect people like women have to be the Virgin Mother Mary and be perfect, and all Christians have to be just like Jesus and fit the ideal of Jesus and be perfect. And if you're not, perfect like the Virgin Mary or Jesus or something, then they condemn you. But this is not realistic because we're not in heaven. We don't have our perfected bodies. We're sinners that are humble, seeking a relationship with God, realizing that we're also in this world that's in a fallen state. Holy crap, a lot of people.
What's good, man?
Welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
What?
Do you accept God as your creator?
Which God?
Everyone always says that.
It's a legitimate question.
Well, not really, because you're just avoiding answering my question, which has nothing to do with like which.
Well, no, I mean, what, like, God? Because, there's different rules for every religion, different.
I'm asking you, do you accept God as your creator, right? I'm not talking about.
I'm asking you which God you're referring to.
If I ask you, is there ice cream in the bowl? And you go, what flavor of ice cream? That's not relevant to what I'm asking you.
I mean, fair enough. I guess I don't believe in any God, but I still think it's a fair question considering that.
Well, it's just an example of how. It's just an example of how you're deception. You're a deceptive person, and you're a bad faith when you talk to people on TikTok, apparently.
Well, that's not really a bad faith question. You could have just clarified, Christian God.
When I ask a question, do you accept God as your creator? And you go,
so you only think there's one God?
That's bad faith.
Because the question was already posed as, do you... No, but you posed the question as, do you accept God? Like, you didn't specify, a God, right? So I could have been, Hindu and said yes, but then we could disagree on it.
Uh-huh. That's true. But a Hindu doesn't accept God as their creator because the Hindu doesn't believe in the creator-creature distinction.
Right, it's polytheistic.
They think they are God. They are part of God. They're not created by God. So when I said, do you accept God as your creator, a Hindu would say no, a Muslim or a Jew would say yes. So
right, and you have disagreements with either of those religions.
But it's just an easy way to show that you're bad faith because when you say which,
what do you mean?
Well, when you have a conversation with someone, it's bad faith to not answer their questions. And so when I ask,
but I just asked for a more specific question,
Sure, but it's bad faith. It's just an indicator to me.
It's bad faith to ask for a more specific question.
Yeah, it's bad faith to not answer a question and be
I mean, I guess we'll agree to disagree on that being bad faith, but
it is bad faith. You're wrong because you're trying to obfuscate your position.
Well, no, I'm asking you what
bad faith. It's literally textbook bad faith, 101 bad faith. But you don't care, obviously, because you hate.
How is it textbook bad faith? How?
like to not tell someone your position in a debate is definitionally bad faith. That's what it means
But
to be
you're
bad.
doing the same thing by not telling me you're.
No, I am telling you, I'm a Christian. I believe in the Christian God.
All right. Got it. So, but do you see why that question's fair though?
It's fair, but you didn't answer my question. That's what I'm saying. Like you
I
should
did.
answer the question and then ask your question, not just ask me a question without answering. You see, you didn't answer my question when you say which
All right.
God.
Well, we each answered each other's questions, so we can move on.
Okay.
All
So
right. So, as far as you know, God, right? Were you like raised Christian?
yeah, I was raised Catholic.
So, do you think that, let's say you were born somewhere else and raised with different beliefs, you would follow those, or you would like know that the Christian one is the right one?
No, I would always be a Christian.
How come?
Because because it's obvious, and I don't hate the truth. I love the truth, and because I seek the truth, I would have always been a Christian. No
So
matter
let's
what.
say let's say you weren't raised Christian. Let's say you were raised, let's say, fuck it, atheist, right? You would come to the conclusion that the Christian God is the one true God,
Yeah,
because what? And just give me your reasons.
because I don't hate the truth, and people
That's
who hate
not.
the only people that don't accept Jesus in their heart are people that hate Jesus and hate the truth, because Jesus is the truth, right? And because I don't hate the truth, I'm willing to accept
The
harsh
thing is, you have
truths.
to you can't just like claim something's the truth without like reasoning.
Oh yeah, so we can prove we now know that the Bible is true because of the transcendental argument for God. So
Can
you
you
can't.
can you explain the? Sorry, you said transcendental argument for
Yeah,
God.
make a transcendental argument for God that we objectively prove the truth of
So
the Bible.
everything in the Bible you believe.
Absolutely.
So like the flood, Noah's Ark, all that stuff, right? Adam and Eve.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that the Earth is 6,000 years old.
It doesn't say that in the Bible.
Well, they've done the math, like as far as the time scale and everything.
Yeah, but it's not explicitly
Right.
stated about the age of the
It's
Earth.
not.
So it's not really. I don't believe that, but I believe
Okay.
everything the Bible says.
So so why don't you believe the Earth is 6,000 years old? Let's say. Is it because of
Um,
science? Like you can say that.
I don't really. I'm not really interested in the age of the Earth. I don't really care how old the Earth is, so I don't. I don't really know anything about that topic. So I don't
But
like
like
make.
let's say,
Like I'm not.
somebody
I'm
like
not an
came to you
atheist.
with evidence
I'm
for
a.
the age of the Earth, right? Like,
What?
would you? Let's say somebody came to you with like scientific evidence for the age of the Earth. Like, would you dismiss that because you don't care, or would you dismiss it because like it kind of goes against um, what it says in the Bible?
If any scientific claim went against the claims of the Bible, I'd go with the Bible because science would be impossible unless the claims of the Bible are true. So you could never use science to
Can you
disprove the
explain?
Bible.
Could you explain why science would be impossible without the Bible?
Sure, for science to be possible, some things have to be true prior to like science, which is like there has to be uniformity of nature, causality has to be true, and identity over time has to be true. And only God's revelation can explain or justify those things. And therefore, you couldn't do science without God's revelation to explain the necessary preconditions to do science and make science
So
possible.
do you know what the first like step of the scientific method is?
Yeah,
It's observation, right?
right.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be able to do that without the Bible. You wouldn't be able to observe anything.
But the thing is, you haven't made the direct like link to the teachings of the Bible, like
Yeah.
100%, like proving that that's why that observation is there. You know what I mean?
To observe the world, cause and effect has to be true. Like something in the world, external world, has to cause a reaction or an effect of your senses. So where you're perceiving something in the external world through senses. Without cause and effect, you wouldn't be able to observe anything. Right?
I mean, yes. I don't think that the matter and the energy in the universe necessarily cares whether we can observe it or not, right? There's a lot of mysteries that
Yeah,
we
but to
still don't.
even make an observation of anything, cause and effect has to be true. If cause and effect isn't true, we can't observe things. So it's a necessary precondition for observation. Well, how do we know that cause and effect is true? Because we can't observe cause and effect because it's necessary for observation.
Well,
So
we can
how do
observe cause and effect.
we cannot observe cause and effect? That's incorrect. So you don't know what you're talking about. So why did you lie right
We
there?
can't observe cause and effect.
We can
Like
observe
we
cause and
can't.
effect. So
We can't.
why did you lie and just tell me that we can? Why did you lie? Is it because you hate God and you hate the truth?
Well, no.
Is
I
that
mean, I think we
oh
observe cause and effect a lot.
you think we do? Can you prove
No,
we do?
I mean, I know we do. I mean,
Okay, prove it.
yeah, sure. Uh, well, humans cause things to, be done. I mean, we can say like if we put matter in like a particle accelerator, right, and we hit them against each other at very high speeds, like that's the cause for a certain type of radiation like being emitted from that matter. Like that's cause and then effect.
But to observe something, cause and effect has to be true prior to observation. So how can you use observation to prove cause and
Well,
effect?
no, I'm saying we're observing the cause and the effect.
We don't observe cause and effect
But why not?
because we observe one perception, a cause, we observe another perception, an effect, but we don't observe the connection, the force or principle, or the similarity that connects them.
So
We
you're
never
saying
observe that.
we can't prove causation, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And you lied when you say we can observe it. You were lying. And the reason you were
Well,
lying is because you
I can
hate
give you an
God.
example of us observing cause and effect, though.
There's no example of that. You just lied. So
I
because
didn't lie.
you did lie.
You can't really. We can't have a productive argument if you're just accusing me of lying when I gave you a legitimate
if
example.
you did
That's a
not give me
legitimate. Is that not a legitimate example?
it's not a legitimate example. It's a lie.
Why not? What's a lie?
Because
What about what exact specifically and what I said was a lie?
you said we can observe cause and effect, but we don't. We don't observe the force or principle that connects observations together. That's never
Like if
observed.
I give you the example of like, okay, I'm not really sure. Like,
There's no example that you can give me, and that you just want to keep lying. We're not going to move. If you're
I'll
just
give
going
you.
to sit here and lie to me,
No,
we're not.
I'm not lying. I'm just trying to
You
think of an
are
example that you'd
lying.
understand.
I've done research
I'm
on
trying to
this
think of an
topic.
example that you'd
Do I
understand.
sound like I don't know what I'm talking about?
I didn't say that. I mean, you're saying
Well,
that
I've
about
done
me.
research on this topic. I know for a fact that you cannot observe cause and effect. You just assume it's true, right?
Well, okay,
Necessary for science.
let's say I paint a wall, right? And I observe it drying. I know the chemical like properties of the paint. I know why it dries out. I know why it cures, it hardens, right? Like that's cause and effect, no?
No.
You don't think so?
Cause and effect requires a unifying principle, a connecting principle.
Right, and I just said that we know the unifying principle between the wet paint and the dry paint.
You don't observe it.
Yes.
Where do you observe
yes,
it?
you do. What do you mean? We could just observe the paint drying on like a chemical scale.
Okay.
But do you not see what I'm saying?
Well, I see that you're lying to me
That's
because
not
you hate God.
right.
It is a lie.
Bro, what?
You're lying to me because you hate God and you'd rather believe
I can't hate
anything
something
but
I don't
God.
believe in.
Well, then why don't you believe in Jesus? What's the rational reason?
I'm sure Jesus was a real prophet. I don't doubt that.
God claimed he's God. I mean, Jesus claimed he's God. You don't believe that.
Well, I can go around claiming I'm God. Does it make me God?
Oh my God.
No, like answer.
No, it doesn't. But
Right.
Jesus was resurrected from the dead. That's why he's God.
The thing is,
You didn't get
there's
resurrected.
no hard evidence for that because people can't be resurrected from the dead. That's not a thing that happens. Wine can't be turned into water. Bread can't be turned into fish. Like,
To have evidence, you need cause and effect.
but that's what I'm saying. You don't have evidence for, Jesus's resurrection.
Sure we do.
No, you have testimony, and like that's also over like rewritten like dozens of times over thousands of years. Like,
you're not getting this. This is going over your head.
no, what is going over my head? I feel like what I'm saying is going over your head.
Your lies.
What lies? What did I say that was a lie? You keep just saying it's
we can observe.
cause and effect can't be observed. I just gave you an example of cause and effect being observed, and you're like, no, you're lying.
Okay, yeah. So you're eating spaghetti, right?
Okay.
You observe. You can smell the spaghetti. That's a separate sense data. Then
right, but there's a cause to me being able to smell the spaghetti. You understand, right?
Listen to me.
But do you understand that there's a cause?
You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to learn anything from you. You're clueless. You're lost in the sauce.
Sure, man. Maybe you're like,
dude. You're lost in the sauce. You're lost in the sauce.
You ever consider that you're lost in the sauce because you've been brainwashed since a very young age to believe a certain thing?
No, I know what I'm talking about, and I think critically. I'm not indoctrinated like you.
Right.
So, anyways, you see the spaghetti. That's one sense data. You smell the spaghetti. That's another sense data, and you taste the spaghetti. That's a third sense data. Those are all separate sense data.
You can feel it. If you drop it on the floor, you can hear it. There's a cause to all of those senses.
Where in sense data do you sense that the spaghetti you see, smell, and taste? Where in sense data is that is the same spaghetti? How do you know that's the same spaghetti based on sense data alone?
Well, it's not sense data alone. I mean, your brain has to process it.
Right. So, but you're saying that knowledge comes from like our senses and our reason, right? But
well, I think a large part of science is eliminating like the human error of like senses, right? Like we see a rainbow, we don't understand it, right? But if we use, I mean, that's a bad example. Let me give a better one. Let's just say like humans can't see like a lot of wavelengths of light, right? Does that mean they're not there? No.
You're not focused on what I'm presenting to you. There's three sense datas: the sight, the smell, the taste. And it's all of the same spaghetti, but where in sense data do you see the similarity between those sense datas? That it's all the same similar spaghetti. Where do you sense that? The perceptions.
The thing is, right? Like our brains are kind of hardwired. Like, okay, let's say like you give a newborn baby a block or spaghetti, like to use your example, right? Like the baby's gonna feel a tangible thing. It's all of the baby's senses, like you're saying, right? Are gonna point to this being the same thing. The baby's gonna learn like, oh, this is what spaghetti feels like. This is what spaghetti looks like. This is what spaghetti smells like.
Where in sense data, where do you get that it's the same spaghetti in sense data? Where's the similarity? Where are we sensing the similarity between the sense data?
But don't you think that comes from like experience? Like knowing what spaghetti looks like.
Sir, you said we can observe cause and effect. And I'm pointing out that we don't observe the similarity between our sense data. So we don't observe.
What do you mean? What do you mean we don't observe the similarity?
You observe cause and effect.
No. Can you explain that? Like, what do you mean we don't observe the similarities in our sense data?
The spaghetti you see.
You don't think the similarities between the taste and the smell of spaghetti
is not. Nowhere in sense data does it say that the identity of the spaghetti you see is the same identity of the spaghetti you smell or taste. Where in sense data is it telling you that the identity of the spaghetti is the same? It's the same spaghetti. Where are you sensing that?
Through our senses. I don't really understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, this is going over your head. I don't know. No. I should have gone more remedial with you.
If it's a tangible thing, right? That comes from learning it, right? Like that comes from experience. I know what spaghetti tastes like, smells like, looks like because I've, seen it in the past. If I had never seen it before.
This is going over your head. I have to go more remedial.
Go for it, man.
Okay. Imagine like, okay, so if there was nothing limiting the state of existence of an apple, then the apple would have no limit to its states of existence. Would you agree to that?
States of existence, as in like that it exists in like, okay, sure.
If there's no limit to the apple's properties, then the apple could change into like an orange or a banana or a car or anything.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
All right.
So in the world without anything limiting the properties of stuff, you couldn't do science, because if you're doing a scientific experiment and the thing that you're experimenting, the properties keep changing,
right?
Or every time you do the experiment, the properties of the thing are different. You can't do experiments. So there needs to be a limit on the
Well,
properties of the
properties
apple.
do change, like in a lot of like. What do you mean,
Yes.
like chemical properties, like physical properties?
Yes, properties change, but there's a regularity too, where there is a
Right, it's made out
consistency.
of the same stuff. I don't disagree with you. It
There's a
doesn't change. It doesn't change what it's made out of.
No, I'm saying like an apple has properties like it's the apple shape. It's
Okay,
like
physical properties.
there's a limit to its properties. Like an apple can only get so physically so big. It can only get physically so small. It can only be so many
That's more like
colors.
biological of like how the apple can grow.
Well, yeah, but what would be limiting the properties of the apple if it's not God?
Probably. I mean, like if you think about it, like nothing, because watermelons are bigger than apples, and those also grow on the plant. But like it's just because it's a specific like species of plant. That's how that fruit grows.
If we lived in a world where there's nothing limiting the apple's properties, you couldn't do science because science relies on this like regularity that there's limitations to the properties of things so that
Okay. Yeah.
science can make sense.
And I think scientific laws do a pretty good job of like describing the properties that we see in the universe, right?
Right. So what would I say God limits the properties of the apple, right? What would you say if you don't believe in God? What would do that?
Like as in keeping the apple from just like turning into like an amorphous like fourth dimensional like anything, right? Anything. I would say that the laws of the universe, laws of physics, don't really allow the apple to do that.
But the laws of physics need something to limit the laws of physics. So what would limit the laws of physics so that
Well,
they
the laws of physics are just observations that we made about the world around us. You
the
understand?
laws of physics are immaterial, unchanging, universal concepts
They're
that
constants. They're observations that we
that
made
that
that
describe
describe the universe
limitations.
around us. Sure.
They
So you're
describe
saying okay. So you're saying that
limitations.
those those limitations must be created by God.
I believe I'm a Christian, so I believe God is limiting things so that we can do science. What do you think is limiting things? Because you don't believe it's God, so what would be limiting the world so that we could do science? And if you can't answer the
Well, I,
question,
I I don't think I don't think limiting is like really the right word to use. I mean, the universe has
what's
properties.
the right word?
The
Right.
universe
So
the universe has properties, right?
you see how God's
Science does its
necessary to
best
do
to
science.
describe and explain them, right? But then you just like basically the fundamental question that you're asking is like, why is the universe the way that it is? And like I would say like I don't know, right? But
Right.
we
That
have
means you can't do science, though.
no, but we do science on it
But we
all the
can't.
time. No, we do.
Science isn't possible if you don't know the answer to that question. That what's
No,
limiting things.
why?
Now we
No,
can't
no,
do
no,
science.
no, 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 no. We know how the universe is, but we don't know why the universe is how it is. Does that make sense?
We don't know what the universe is. We don't know anything about the
I,
universe.
s- I said we don't know why the universe is how it is. Like we don't know what created the universe,
We don't know
right? Well,
enough about the world to do science unless we accept God's revelation.
that, but we do science without God all the time.
Because God's revelation is true.
Which part of like the scientific method requires God? Like which part of it?
I told you at the beginning that science requires identity over time, causality, and uniformity of nature, and only God's revelation can explain and
Uniformity.
justify those things.
So you think uniformity of nature is like explainable by God, instead of just saying we don't know why the universe is why it is how it is.
That's not an explanation.
I know it's not.
Right.
It's
So
saying we don't know yet.
if
No,
you
it's saying
can't
we don't know
answer,
yet.
if you can't explain or answer why nature is uniform, then science is impossible. Yet science is
But
possible.
the thing is, we explain why a lot of things in nature are uniform. Like,
No,
I'm
we
trying to,
have
I'm trying to
no
think
we have
of
no reason to think that nature is uniform unless you accept the claims of the Bible. If the claims of the Bible are true,
Can I give you an
then
example? Like, all right, so like, I guess vestigial, like, okay, so structures in life, right? Like, tree leaves, for example. Like, we can explain why the parts of down to a cellular level, down to an atomic level even. We can explain why those atoms are arranged in that way to, get the tree the sunlight it needs to give it the energy to break down glucose, right? Like to produce glucose, sorry. We know why the tree does these things to survive, right? So I guess that's uniformity, and we can explain it just biologically, right? I don't see where God fits into that.
Again, you're just gonna sit here and fucking lie to my fucking face over
What did I lie about?
We cannot explain the uniformity of nature with biology. That is nonsense. You're lying. Why are you doing that? Is it because
what did I say that was a lie? What did I say that was a lie?
You can explain the uniformity of nature with biology. That is a fucking lie.
Can you define uniformity of nature? Liar. Can you just so we're on the same page? Can you define uniformity of nature for me?
The proposition that the future resembles the past.
Future resembles the past. Okay, I would say that
you're gonna lie to me. I know that you can't justify it. I've done research. So are you gonna lie to me?
I don't think I did lie to you. I mean, I gave you.
You hate Jesus, sir, and you won't believe the truth.
I didn't even know the guy. Why would I hate him?
Well, that's a good question. Why do you hate the truth? Jesus is the truth, and you hate the truth. What's up with that? Why do you hate the truth?
You're saying like there's not enough evidence to make the conclusion that the Christian God is the real God. That's what I'm saying. So it's fair to say I don't know why the universe is how it is, instead of just saying I don't know, therefore it must be this specific God.
Necessary for evidence. You have no evidence of anything in your model.
No, but God is not necessary for evidence.
Then explain.
You need evidence to prove the existence of God.
Good. Then explain to me, how do you have the uniformity of nature without God's revelation? How would you justify that?
But the uniformity of nature to you is just why the universe is how it is.
That's necessary to do science, sir. If you don't justify the uniformity of nature, then science is impossible. Yet science is clearly possible. So God's revelation must be true. Did you figure out what no one else in the world has figured out, and how to solve the problem of induction and justify the uniformity of nature? Can you do that, which no one has ever been able to do in human history? Can you do that right now?
To you, is the uniformity of nature just why the universe is how it is? What the properties of the universe? Can you
It's the idea the future resembles the past. I told you this. So can you?
So in what way? Like physically, the physical universe, the past of the universe physically resembles the future of the universe. Is that what you're saying?
When I drop a pen and it falls, I predict into the future. Well, because in the past when I dropped the pen and it fell, in the future when I drop the pen it will fall. That's the uniformity of nature.
All right, but
all science has relied on that.
Those are just so basically physics.
Basically all of science and all of human reasoning. Just basically all of human reasoning, yeah.
But all of human reasoning is from observation. You know what I mean? Of how the right. So it's from hold on. So it's from observation of how the universe is, right? We can observe the universe. We can explain why things happen in the universe based on physical properties, chemical properties, right? But we can't say why the universe is how it is. We don't know, we don't know why the universe is made of, quantum string, right? String theory is extremely too complicated for you and I to understand. But that's just what the universe is made of.
Why don't you just accept my evidence instead of sit here and
But you haven't proposed any, first of all, not even close to any hard evidence. But the evidence here is completely
I literally showed that science is impossible unless you accept God's revelation. That's not hard evidence.
You didn't.
Sure I did.
No, you're saying that because the universe is how it is, that's why God exists.
If we don't justify the uniformity of nature, science is impossible. Okay, that's not my opinion. That's what Bertrand Russell said.
Justify the uniformity of nature. Why do you think that the universe has any obligation to be justified to you? You know what I mean?
So if you don't justify it, then science is impossible. You would undermine science.
So what specific aspect of science is impossible? Because I can observe the universe, I can explain the universe from observation, prediction. I can predict the future of the universe, right? Using science without God.
No.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
You can't.
Yeah, you can.
Because to do those things, you need the uniformity of nature to be true, causality to be true, and identity.
Tell me specifically where
You have to
that fits.
explain identity over time, causality, and uniformity of nature to explain anything. So, but you can't explain those things without God's revelation.
But tell me specifically.
Unless you're a Christian,
let's say I'm trying to explain. So let's say I'm trying to explain a rainbow, right? Tell me specifically why I need God.
I've explained this very thoroughly.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
Dude, listen, open your ears. God's necessary for cause and effect to be true. God's necessary for the uniformity of nature to be true.
You're just
God's
saying it. You're not telling me why.
Shut up.
Okay.
God's.
No,
I did tell you why. Only His revelation can explain or justify these things as being true. There's no other way. Human reason and observation.
You're just saying it.
I'm not just saying it. I'm making arguments, dipshit.
Bro. I'm getting to you, bro. I'm sorry.
Well, you're just all you're doing is you're lying.
No, all you're doing is saying
emotional. I presented an evidence. You're not dealing. I've presented evidence to you, rather than acknowledge my evidence.
Your evidence is literally saying God is necessary for this, that, and that.
I'm gonna move on. You're too emotional. I'm looking to talk to rational.
Yeah, man, I'm really emotional. Even though you're going to the.
I presented evidence. Now it's your turn to offer.
You didn't. I asked you a legitimate question, and you can't answer it without just making claims.
I wish you well, but I mean, you hate the truth. So good luck in life. Welcome, guest. Welcome, Rami.
Hello?
Hello. Are you an adult?
Yes.
All right. Do you accept
Sorry?
Do you accept God as your creator?
I don't think so now. I think in the last 5 years, I think there's something that create everything, but when you say God is we don't know. I think we don't know many things. We all think that we know, but we actually don't know much. I think compared to the universe,
the Bible's true. We know the Bible's 100% true, though.
It's not true. I used to think it's true, but it doesn't. It's not make sense. You cannot say that from Adam and Eve. You cannot say you have all this variety of people. You can't have Adam, white woman, and Eve, black or China, or and then you have all this variety from two people. Like there's many stories in the Bible that has no logic sense at all. I mean, come on now.
It's not a logic book.
Well, but it is not a logic book, but the things that we interpreted, we did interpret it in a very wrong way. Because even when...
What are you talking nonsense?
Say again?
What you're saying is nonsense.
Yeah, because the Bible is a nonsense book written by people who doesn't even know. They're written when the vocabulary.
It's a peer-reviewed book, studied book on the planet. It's clearly true, and it's the best way to understand. Well, it's the only way to really understand our experience in the world. You can't deny the Bible rationally.
Well, a man wrote it. All these men have wrote in the Bible, even in.
Yeah, but
all these stories that you read, was written for how long time ago with a certain vocabulary, using a certain vocabulary. So we need to kind of look in our society. Our vocabularies have improved, as a society. We need to look farther and be open-minded to different way of thinking, and
No, Christian Bible is necessarily true. You cannot rationally deny the claims of the Bible.
Why are you so scared to say it might be not? Why you're not open to say maybe not?
Because I want to believe what's true, and we can objectively prove the Bible's true. There's no denial of it.
But why do you want to believe? Is it because you're the fear of being judged by God and going into hell, or what's the reason why you're not open to say, yeah, these people are wrote in the wrong way. We interpreted it all in the wrong way, and perhaps the entire society is in the wrong way because we see the results of following these
Right. We see the results, right? We see a lot of humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross, who, because of Christianity, they help people, they feed the poor, they provide shelter for people that need shelter, right? So we see
exactly.
a lot of charity in the world because of Christianity. There's a lot of good in the world thanks to
That's
Christianity.
the positive part, but people are also mimics the negative part of the Bible where they behave in an evil way, whatever, right? So,
It's negative. There's nothing negative about the message of the Bible. The message is just to love and forgive and be humble.
especially the Old Testament is a lot of war and talking about God being a jealous God, and punishment was something that was, allowed or actually, normalized in the past.
That's not in the past. That's also happening today. All those things happen today. So what's the big deal?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, but
It's just
perhaps that's the reason why, because people have all this interpretation. Imagine if people wouldn't believe in no Bible and no scriptures,
It would be really bad.
and
Yeah, we can imagine that. We have Stalinist Russia. We have the French Revolution, where when they don't believe in God, then a lot of people get unalived. Or we have
we don't need all this nonsense.
There's lots of it. Look, lady, there's lots of examples where people don't believe in God, and that's where the most people get unalived. Because when you believe in God, you don't go around unaliving people because you respect life.
But that was war in the name of God. Most of the wars were in the name of God. No,
you're wrong. You have no idea. Yes? You have no idea. The most unalivement and violence is attributed to atheism. The most oppression, the most persecution in societies is attributed to atheism.
But even witches, if you look in the history, the witches was burned alive just because they had a different belief.
No, Jesus, when they were going to, you have no idea what you're talking about. When they were going to stone the adulterous woman, Jesus made them not stone her. Christians do the opposite of what you're talking about.
I don't know if Jesus
he said, who has without sin cast the first stone. That's what Jesus said. So do you think he would support people casting stones to unalive people? No, it goes against Christianity.
But what do you think Jesus will do? Like, even if we're to be alive today in our society, who do you think, do you think Jesus will take any parts in this war? Do you think Jesus will say, oh, they are right and these are wrong and this must be, you know what I mean?
What?
And still the word,
he didn't go to war with anyone. He could have called down the angels to wipe out all the people on the planet that were his enemies. He didn't do that.
I mean, take both sides, and both sides they believe in God. Both sides are believing in God. Both sides are thinking they are in their truth, and we still are in this position of war. So I don't think. I think sometimes we it's better to say I don't know nothing rather than be a good person in your heart, to do good things for people and less judgment.
You want to know how would you know how to be good without God?
Well, exactly, but because we have this duality, it's a duality on our planet. We see the bad and the good, so we know. No, we've learned.
No, we're ignorant. People are unable to judge for themselves what's good and bad. We need God. Without God, we're screwed.
We are experiencing. I mean, if you do something, if you cut yourself, you see it's bad. You see you feel sick when you eat something, so you know it's bad. Well, it's not always like something to do with God. Just because you believe in God, it's something you learn from your own experience.
If I broke my leg, would you say that's bad?
Well, no, but you understand through your own experience, you understand that this is bad to put yourself in a certain situation, right? So
If
this
I
is the
broke my
way.
leg, would you consider that to be bad?
Well, of course I will feel bad if I broke my leg. I will feel bad. I will feel hurt. I will feel, yeah, depressed. I can't go
Yeah.
nowhere,
So
isn't
it's
it?
bad you broke your leg. That's a bad thing.
It's not that it's bad as I feel bad. Of course I feel bad. So I will know that the next time I will not put myself in certain situation. I will not do the sport that put me in that position in the first place. So I will know better. You learn from your experience. So that's why evolution is, that's how we evolve. Even the vocabulary 100 years ago has evolved now.
Okay, well,
We have a better understanding. We have
I think we have a little language barrier issue. So I don't know. I think it'd just be best if to move on to the next person because I think we're talking past each other. I don't think we're really there's no like understanding or communication going on here.
whatever.
No, I don't mean I'm not. I wish you well. No offense or anything, but I just don't. I don't think we're on the same page here. I think there's like
Yeah,
a language barrier.
of course, because you're not open-minded, so you need to be right. You need to be right that your Bible is the only way. So,
Do you think you're open-minded?
yes, I am open-minded to discover. My entire life, I've been looking into different religion. I've been studying the Bible my entire life. My journey is a long journey to come to this conclusion, but. And just to cut somebody off just because my English is not as good as yours, and to put that as an excuse for you to run off because you think there's no battle in it. It's your choice, but it's a coward to me, for me.
Okay, well, think about it. If you believe you're open-minded, you could be closed-minded, but you would never be open to that possibility. So you can't really be open-minded if you think you're open-minded. But thanks for coming. I wish you.
Wow, that was an Einstein. That was very, very good of you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You like that one? I came up with that myself. Welcome, guest.
Hello. So are you saying objectively, irrefutably, that the Christian God Christ or Jesus Christ is the only God?
Yes.
So what about the other 100+ religions? They're all wrong. Because objectively speaking, if what you're saying is objective, then all 8 billion people on the planet would believe it, not just 2.4 billion.
Well, I mean, the Earth. Would you say the Earth is objectively a sphere?
Well, if we want to talk about that, Christians were the ones that perpetuated that the Earth was flat.
That's
100
not
years
true.
ago.
That's not
It
true.
is true, dude. Look it up.
Well,
I
you're
mean,
lying.
if you so again, but regardless, you're answering my question with another question, right? So the answer is really yes or no, right? Are you disregarding all the other 100 other faiths?
I was trying to point out what you said was false, right? You said that like if it's objectively true that everyone believe it, and I was pointing out that's not the case, right? Just because something's objectively true, it doesn't follow that everyone's going to believe it, right?
I mean, that's not really what objective means, but okay.
It is objective. What do you think objective means?
Objective is something that is just absolute. It is subjective, is what different people view differently, basically.
Yeah. So Christianity
objective. There's no interpretation of what objective is. It is what it is.
It means it's true based on fact, not opinion. That's what objective means, right?
Yes.
Subjective means it's true based on opinion.
So yeah. So how can it be objective if not everyone believes in it?
Because just because something is an objective truth doesn't mean that everyone agrees that it's an objective truth. People disagree on what is objectively true. So it doesn't.
Okay. So then you can't say that God is your God objectively exists. That's what you're saying.
No, Christianity is objectively provable. It's not. It's just not my opinion. It's true.
Okay. So can you go through all the other 100 religions and objectively prove that they're not real?
I don't have to.
You don't have to, but you don't also have to prove that your God is real.
If Christianity is real, that would falsify all the other religions because they can't all be true. If Christianity is true, all the other religions would be false. It would just entail from the truth of Christianity.
And why? Why is that the case?
Because of what the Bible says. If the Bible's true, then all the other religions
But
are
not
false.
everyone has read the Bible. And objectively, not everyone has written the Bible.
So what?
So you're saying a group of small people enforce what the worldwide view is the absolute religion when hundreds of other people have done the exact same thing, and
what on
millions
earth
of other people.
Dude, we're talking about
those.
what we can prove. What are you talking about?
But again, so a group of people or one person, depending on your interpretation, wrote the Bible, right? Other people have written other religious and holy scriptures, and other people believe that. So
okay.
I'm trying to see how right now how Christianity is unique to other religions and what makes it stand above all the other religions.
Well, I mean, it's got the attribute set of the Christian worldview is unique. No other worldview has those attributes, and they're indispensable. It means they're transcendentally necessary, that you can't deny them because they're foundationally necessary to experience the world.
And none of the other religions do that?
Correct.
Not Buddhism, not Norse mythology, not Greek mythology. You know, like at this point, you've claimed one thing, right? Now, normally in a normal debate, if we're debating right now, you would have to back that up with evidence.
Sure. So human reason or like what the evidence would be like only the Christian worldview can meet the transcendental challenge, meaning like only the Christian worldview can explain like the unity in the world. Only Christian worldview can explain like the causal order or the natural order, well, the conceptual order. Only Christianity can explain like morality, all these things. So only Christianity can explain that which is necessary to explain anything at all. Only Christianity has a single unifying principle.
Buddhism explains the idea of reincarnation. Greek and Norse mythology have multiple gods that have roles in the power of nature and the essence of humanity and human nature. Any religion I can think of off the top of my head, they all also explain how the world works, how the universe works, how humans work. That either a god or gods have roles in dictating how our universe perpetuates. So again, I fail to see how you've said the same thing that every other religion has done. I don't think that.
No, none of those other religions have a single unifying principle with causal powers that is going to be necessary to explain anything. So none of the other religions can explain a damn thing.
But they have.
But they don't.
That doesn't make it right.
You're not getting it.
But they've explained it.
You need a
Just
single.
If you explain something doesn't make it right.
You need a single unifying principle for any explanation. Only Christians have a single unifying principle. Those other religions don't have a single unifying principle.
So is there a single unifying principle that dictates how two people get married?
Yeah.
What's that single unifying principle?
God.
And why is God that single unifying principle? Because there are people who get married for religious reasons, for political reasons. God doesn't have any say in that.
The Bible, God dictates all states of affairs, all possibilities and impossibilities. So God's will is authoritative. It's obligatory. You have to do God's will. Okay,
so even people who don't believe in God takes the time to dictate the actions of all of his non-believers.
He created humans as like secondary causes so we can make choices on our own. Mm-hmm. But he dictates the state of affairs. So he sets up the world and determines possibilities, impossibilities, and necessities.
So that's a whole other argument, and it's kind of funny because that's a whole argument about if God really gave us free will or not, if he has to dictate everything, the outcome of everything. That's not really free will in the first place, in my opinion. But regarding your point of everything has a singular cause. So basically, and going back to the root, what you're saying is God is all knowing, all powerful, and God has no peers, so he can't be judged, he can't be questioned. You have to follow what God says. Would that be a correct statement?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means going under your own Bible, that if you had children, or let's say your mom or your dad, if God came down and told you, hey, I need you to kill your mom, or I need you to kill your dad, you would do it without hesitation, correct?
You can't say those words.
Sorry, schmill.
Yeah, I would do like whatever God's will is the good in
Okay.
Christianity.
So, and then at that point, I can't really debate with you anymore, because if the whole idea of debating in the first place is to prove something or point out something, but your faith, as you so have aptly put it, you've basically said you're willing to do whatever God tells you, regardless of your own conscience. So have a nice day, but it's just a waste of time talking to you.
Okay, I wish you well. So there you have it, folks. They hate Jesus, they hate the truth, they'll believe any lie as long as that lie isn't God. Anything but God. They don't care if Jesus is the truth. They don't care about truth. They hate truth. Jesus could come from heaven and smack them on the face and they'll just say they're hallucinating it. Because anything but God. It's hatred, pure hatred. Notice every time I present evidence, does anyone respond to the evidence or my arguments? No. They dodge, they obfuscate, they prevaricate, they bloviate. Anything but God. Welcome, Andrew.
What up, man? How you doing?
Doing well.
So, whenever you were using all those words, they were like obfuscate, or what did you say? Let's do the list again.
That's what Darth used to say all the time. They obfuscate, prevaricate, bloviate.
Ovulating?
What's that?
No, nothing. Don't worry about it. So, how's your life been going, man? You've been having a lot of good atheist
Uh,
lives?
it's been pretty bad. The people, they're just kind of ignoring what I'm saying, and then they're like preaching their nonsense and like straight up lying to me because anything but God.
Yeah, I mean, also, with all these atheists, dude, they bring up like the craziest points. It's like, if Jesus told you to do this heinous action, would you do it?
Yeah.
Is this ever going to do that? No.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, because we have the story of
And
Abraham.
actually have you do it. And actually have you do it. Sorry.
Well, yeah, even there's stories of like what God wanted us to do to the Jews to do to the Amalekites. So I just think we as humans, we can't really judge what's right and wrong. And if God is commanding things that to our the natural man seems wrong, it's just evidence that we have no idea what's right and wrong, and only God knows. But they want to determine for themselves what's right and wrong, and they don't want to listen to God, and that's all it is. So I'm just gonna bite. I'm sick of all this crap about like defending that like there's good values or whatever. If they want to think the Old Testament God's evil, then I'll just bite the bullet. Okay, it's evil to your according to you, right? And but humans can't really decide what's good and evil, so who cares what they think? I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean,
even.
if it's a all-knowing, all-powerful God, then that means that he is the moral example, and anything that he does is perfect.
I'm
Like,
just
he
biting the
wouldn't make
bullet.
the wrong decision.
God commands things that goes against like sort of our common sense of what we think is right and wrong. And instead of that being evidence that God's evil, all that is evidence that we don't really know what's right and wrong, and we're totally dependent on God to know that. So there you go.
Right.
That's how I'm going with that.
I mean, fair enough, dude. Is it like have you done the objective, subjective morality argument yet, or?
Well, if you go with arguments presuppose sort of an objective morality, because in an argument you ought be consistent and you ought seek the truth or care about the truth or value the truth. You couldn't if you didn't believe in objective morality, then there's no like ought to why someone should accept your argument, and that your argument has no force. There's no like, okay, so you made an argument, but why should I believe you? There's no ought. So you can't.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't argue
within their paradigm, we're just accidents. So there's nothing that binds us to something greater.
Yeah. So you made an argument, but you can't say why I ought to believe your argument. Well, then that argument is
Right.
it's useless. It doesn't. So what? So they need to have an objective morality to even argue.
Yeah, but they can't. That's the thing. If you don't have a greater morality holding you to this set of rules or claims or morality or whatever it's holding you to, then you have no objective morality. It's
Even
simply just I feel this.
Well, most atheist philosophers are going to be what they call natural morality, and they're going to argue that like they can derive some oughts from, I guess, like I don't know, sociology or biology or something.
Yeah, I mean they always give the whole like, oh well, it's whatever benefits humanity is the objective good. But then
they're doing an is ought fallacy because just because something is that way doesn't mean it ought be that way.
Right. All right. Well, if anybody else is coming up here, please kick me because I'm not trying to take over your life.
Right on, man. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you.
Yep. God bless you, brother.
Bless. Oh, they were requesting, and as soon as I kicked him, they stopped requesting. But that's cool. I kind of want to read this book anyways. I'm like near the end. How cute, an echo chamber. Well, you're welcome to come up and disagree, Matt Hutch, STL. It's at St. Louis. I'm from the Lou and I'm proud. You're not supposed to be proud. You're supposed to be humble. Everyone thinks it's like cool to be proud. That's like literally the opposite. That's the devil talking. Okay, ethics shows boundaries. We need a real road reports. Living faith in real life. So faith isn't just conceptual, it has to be lived. If we bear these two facts in mind, we shall lead to the following conclusions. The church is a human society. So according to what we have recognized above, this society, even when it did not want to, instigated, produced, and secreted a morality, not as Christian, but as a society. The church could hardly do without regulating the relations of its members by an ethic, and the faithful among them bring about ethical situations. Novels about the church have shown this 100 times. And they behave as ethical subjects, sometimes with very little Christianity. Now, it is much more dangerous for the church to follow an unexplored instinctive morality. We have indicated that above. Because it is a society, it has to have a morality. Because it is a Christian society, it needs not a Christian morality. We have seen the impossibility of that term, but a conscious morality, aware of its reality, humble and under condemnation, in the service of the faithful and not opposed upon them. These four characteristics are, in a word, the mark of its Christian authenticity. The surprising thing is the fact that the principal preoccupation, the definition of the good, of all the traditional ethics is here ruled out. Ethics for Christians cannot set out in search of the good, for the question of the good and evil has been resolved and liquidated once for all in virtue of God's decree, through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Hence, theological ethics cannot go back over this ground, since the decision has already taken place. It can only accept the decision. We have also said that the believer participates in history and that it is in thinking of him as a participant in history that we should formulate an ethic. But that means that the latter will constantly evolve. Morality should express our way of being present to the world. Hence, it should vary as the world changes. To take the Christian morality of the 13th century and to pretend that Christians today should live according to its precepts is an absurdity. There can be no morality except a contemporary one. Let's explain. So, ChatGPT help. So I tried to explain this to a layman, and then I put into ChatGPT. What I read. And I recommend people do this because it's not good enough to just read something. We gotta think about what we're reading. So it's good to ponder over things, go over them, review them with the help of AI. Oh, we got someone requesting up. I'll add you in a second. I just want to read the ChatGPT. Okay, this passage is saying that the church as a human society inevitably develops its own moral rules or ethics, not just because it's Christian, but simply because it's a social group. But since it's also a Christian society, the ethics it follows need to be different from strict traditional moral systems. Instead of claiming to have an ultimate Christian morality, the church should have a conscious morality, one that recognizes its own limitations, is humble, doesn't see itself as absolute, and aims to serve rather than control its members. Here's the breakdown. 1. The church as a society. Like any community, the church naturally develops rules to help members relate to each other. This moral structure isn't purely Christian, but it's needed to keep things running smoothly. 2. A different kind of morality. Since it's also a Christian group, the church's ethics should be humble, recognizing its human limitations, and not pretending to define what is absolutely good or evil. Instead, it should focus on guiding members in a flexible, service-oriented way. 3. Good and evil are already settled. In traditional ethics, the big task is to define what is good and evil. But Christian teaching says this has already been decided by God through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Because of this, Christian ethics doesn't need to go hunting for ultimate good or ultimate evil, but instead should focus on how to live faithfully within what's already been revealed. In short, Christian ethics, according to this view, isn't about setting new absolute rules for good and evil, but about guiding members in a humble, supportive, service-focused way, and service-focused way that respects the church's Christian beliefs. Maybe a good way to think of this is Christian ethics, rather than being strict rules, should just be sort of boundaries or bumpers. There's this wall you run into and it bumps you back into the center or something, where there's this range. Within this range, things can kind of it's situational depending on how the Holy Spirit interprets the situation. But there's a certain guideline that it's not going to unaliving your children as a sacrifice or something. That would be outside the guideline. Maybe I could describe that when people ask me the questions about, what if God commanded you to unalive your father? Would you do it? Well, technically, yes, but also there's a boundary within Christian ethics where that's not something that God would command or something like that, I guess. Well, can I really say that though? Because sometimes God commands. Yeah, this is a difficult one. That's a difficult one. What's up, guest?
Hey.
Hello.
I just heard the tail end of your reading there. The first thing that comes to mind is this idea that all good and evil has already been settled, and therefore it's not the human or the Christian's job to moralize and determine who's good and bad. Yet, and I'm not a Christian. I'm not an atheist either. Um, Agnostic, I suppose, is where I'd label myself. But it seems to me, in the church at least, an organized religion, the determining of who's good and evil and being concerned over your neighbor's moral standing is their number one goal. That's what every religion, every Christian person I've met is concerned with.
Well, that's what it's turned into be, but it's not supposed to be like that.
So are you? So you're a? Are you an organized Christian? Do you attend church? Are you part of a sort of a more progressive Christian, organization?
No, I don't. I don't go to church. I study the Bible on my own.
Okay. Well, I gotta say it's refreshing to hear of a. Do you read Kierkegaard at all? Are you familiar with him much?
Um, oh, I'm familiar with him, but I want to read his books, but I haven't read any of his books. I've like watched videos about him, so I'm sort of familiar with him. But
His Fear and Trembling book. I do like reading Christian theology to a degree. I like having grown up in a very religious town. I like knowing who my neighbors are and where they're coming from and things like that. But Kierkegaard is of the mind that true Christianity is a somewhat alienating power. Talking about Abraham and Isaac and how by walking his son up onto the mountain for sacrifice, Abraham appears like an insane person. That true practicing of Christianity will appear to others as insane, and therefore is like this alienating force. And so he's this is sort of an argument against organized religion is that to come together and come to these consensus ideas of what the Bible means is to separate ourselves from like a personal relationship with the book. Sounds like what you're doing. I just want to say that is a type of Christianity that I think needs to spread. But ironically, it will not spread because you're not going to be as evangelical about it because it's a personal thing. I guess, what do you think about that? How can you influence your friends who are evangelical proselytizers to turn this into a more personal thing, which I believe is a more fruitful type of relationship to God or existence in general?
okay, so this is just like a necessary evil. When humans come together and we live as a society, we have to develop like codes of conduct and morals. And there's this sort of like there's so much to unpack here. Like we feel more secure. Like we'd rather follow like a checklist of like I do the XYZ and then I'm saved, rather than like my salvation is up to like God's grace, which means it's unmerited. I can't earn it. But then we don't like that because there's no security in there, because we can't ever really know, since we don't earn it. We can never really know if we're going to receive God's grace. But people don't like that. They want strict morality, follow these rules, XYZ, and then I get the goodie or whatever. That's it's like a sense of security. And it's also sort of a necessary to like interact with each other. We do have to follow certain. So there's this like natural tendency to turn Christianity into this like ethical system, but it can't really be that, because we serve the living God, and to try to formulate God's will into like a categories or commandments is to like make God submit to us. Now God has to follow this like ethical system that we created, and God can't break that. But God's free to kind of like, he's the living God. And so we need sort of a fluid ethical system as Christians that can adapt and change to situations and be real life related. And as a result of all that, Christians can't, it's just difficult for them to live like that. And so they go into these communities with order and structure, and they feel secure. But that's kind of getting away from the message of Christ, and they're acting more like Pharisees than Jesus, basically. But I don't think we really have to worry. Like yeah, I'm not a big fan of organized religion. Kierkegaard wasn't, but um, we don't really have to worry. It doesn't. It's not important that it spreads. Like I don't think Christianity was meant to be like this massive thing where everyone's a Christian. Like I think Christianity is supposed to work where it's like this antithesis to the authority of any society.
Well, I got to ask then, is the Bible difficult? I would think seeing this tendency of mankind to interpret and claim things are the word of God and claim that they have the right interpretation of things. It's one of the reasons why the Bible has always been difficult to see as like a sacred text. First of all, I don't subscribe to miracles. I think the life of Christ, I believe he probably existed, and I like his teachings, what I've read of them, the Sermon on the Mount and whatnot. I most of that I align myself with, as I do with many other religious texts. Though, how do you rationalize, limiting yourself when there are so many great texts, even many that predate the Hebrew Bible? Or how do you justify limiting yourself to one? Is it simply because it's what you have to acknowledge it is, to a degree, just because it's what you were raised on. It's a truth that you emerged into, rather than one, that you consciously shopped and
No, I wasn't a Christian my whole life. Most of my life, I was not a Christian. I thought Christianity was false.
But it was the prevailing ideology. It is the. I mean, same here. My family never brought me to church. Like I said, I grew up in a religious. I mean, we grew up. If you're American, you're in a religious country. You are surrounded by the ideology. So, if I ever did settle on Christianity or decide that I was a Christian, it would be largely because the narrative and the characters in the narrative and all of this. The themes are all so familiar, and I'm applying them and sort of projecting them onto my experience. Whereas, had I grown up in India, it would be the Hindu stories. It'd be different. It'd be different texts that I'm projecting onto my world, and I would be wrestling with whether or not I'm Hindu or atheist.
Yeah, but so what? There's deterministic factors that go into what we believe, but I mean, there's people that are born in India that become Christians, or people that are born in China that become Christians, where they have no like Christian influence really. So that would show you that it's not necessarily the case that our beliefs are totally determined by our environment. That we have like sort of like a soul where we can decide things for ourselves.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, anyone's free, especially in the information age where we really have access to discussion and like really exploring ideas outside of our geographical scope of reach. But you have to imagine that the sheer scale of any religion and the sheer exposure of any religion plays a large part in it being just a prevailing ideology. I would, again, this is hard for me to imagine as an atheist my whole life, but it's hard for me to understand how believers, first of all, feel any need to settle on one thing. I would think any just God would be.
What do you mean, dude? If I'm a Christian, if the Bible is true, all the other religions are false.
Yeah, I don't see that. That's where you lose me. Is this one is right and all the others are wrong, and
there can only be one truth. There's not multiple metaphysical realities.
Well,
the Earth can exist and not exist at the same time.
Whether there can be multiple metaphysical realities, that could be up to debate if you're talking to
You're
physicists.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
But regardless, that's off the.
Not up for debate.
It's not what I'm talking about.
If there's multiple metaphysical realities, we can't debate.
Well, if we're projecting reality, for example, this is one theory that theoretical physicists talk about, is that reality is a projection of our mind.
I gotta go, but like it's just there's one truth, one reality. So if Christianity is true, all the other ones are false, right? And I think when you live your life, shit or get off the pot. And if you what you're doing is you're not shitting and you're not getting off the pot. You're in limbo. You're like, I don't know what's true. Anything could be true.
No, I'm remaining in awe of the miracle, and I'm embracing.
Grow a pair, take a position, and stand for that position in life.
No, I'm not trying to make